Hi everyone, welcome to the In Context podcast. My name is Oluwatoyin for short. You can call me
Avec.
Oluwatoyin. Yes,
And
allow.
my name is Joanna.
Yeah,
And yes, my name is Joanna, and you can actually call me Joe for short. Forget Oluwatoyin.
intense
She's not
rolling my eyes, please,
that's not a
please,
serious person. But yes,
please.
we are not the only ones here today. We are joined by a special someone.
Uh,
We are joined. I mean, you can probably see his name on the screen. But yes, we're joined by Daniel. Anyway, Oluwatoyin, tell us who Daniel is. A little bit about who Daniel is.
Oh, okay. Daniel is a web developer, but I don't want to be the one to tell you about Daniel. He's right here. Let him talk about himself, right? But before we go into that, before you come and tell us who you are, we have two truths and a lie. And you know why I feel like we might not be able to get this? Because Yoruba men, they have a reputation. In case you don't know
Mm.
what that reputation is, where you should Google it. What reputation do Yoruba men have? Right? So I feel like we may not be able to guess the lie, but we'll try our
Mm.
best. So Daniel, you're going to tell us two truths and a lie about your career, and we're going to try
Mm.
to guess it.
Yeah, so we'll do an intro after that. We'll piggyback off of your lie or your
Mm,
truth to do like
mm.
an intro. But yes, Daniel, go for it. And you have 15 seconds to come up with a lie. We don't worry, this is not hard for you as a Yoruba man. So,
First of all, what do you mean? I grew up a church boy. Honestly,
Oh,
ooh,
please.
I know, like lying is,
oh, cute.
it's not a fun experience. It's the way the
Mm.
two of you don't believe me at all. Okay, two truths and a lie.
Mm.
Um, ah, this could take you a while. Like, okay, two truths and a
Go
lie.
for it.
Um, I wanted to say one, but Oluwatoyin will know that one.
Please don't say anyone that she will know.
This this babe has seen me finish. That's my problem. I don't know how to. I don't. Okay.
I'm trying.
Uh,
I'm trying to pretend.
two truths and a lie. One, I've been freelancing most of my career.
Okay.
Um, one, I worked in I've worked in a bank before, and
Okay.
three, I've been fired like twice in my career.
Mm.
Let's say
Juicy.
minimum of twice.
Juicy. I guess
Ooh,
you go.
it's a little hard, but I do remember you working in a bank. Hey God, if my memory fails me today, I'll be so pained. But yeah, I feel like it's not the bank one. I don't even remember ever hearing that. Yeah. I think it's in the
Anyway,
bank.
Shaz, fun fact actually, just before I actually answer, because I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. Well, actually, when he said he grew up in church, we grew up in the same church, actually, Daniel and I.
Wow, look at
That
you
yeah,
guys.
We grew up in the same church, and there was a time where we used to have church related conversations on Twitter. So,
Wow.
yeah, like,
that was a long time ago. That was
yeah,
a
but
Right?
long
like
time
it
ago.
would be like in
Wow.
DMs, like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? But anyway, I digress. I don't know that I've ever known Daniel to not be in the creative space, like in this like that time that he was doing all the posters and all the coolest stuff. Sure. Anyway, we'll talk about it later because we
That
have
was my
things to
claim to
work
fame.
on. Yeah, that's your claim to fame.
Right?
So I think I am inclined to align with Oluwatoyin on this, but I'm really hopeful that your lie, like we did not find out your lie, so that we will hold it over your head that you are a
Yeah.
very good Yoruba man. So
Tell us.
What do you say the lie is?
I would say the lie is that you
You
worked
work
in a
in a bank.
bank.
Don't tell me you've worked with a bank, or I don't want to hear that. That's different from you worked in a bank. Like, because now that I think about it, you have done a lot of, oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes.
The thing is I kind of cheated. All of them are true.
What do you mean by that? You see,
this is how
this
you
just
feel.
proves that
Okay,
you're a proper
so
Yoruba man.
so The first one is I've been freelancing most of my career. That's true.
Yeah.
Second one is I've worked in a bank. I did my IT in FCMB. Then the third one, I've been fired. I've been fired. You know that one time I was fired. But
Yeah.
that wasn't fired. That was let go. But
Mm.
semantics. And
Mm.
I've also been let go from another freelancing type stuff before. So yeah, all three of them are true. But I threw in
So
that bank
as
one because
as you
that
use,
bank one,
That back
I just
that
have to
one.
bank,
say, I just have to say that based on the instruction and you deviating from the instruction, you are a bona fide liar. Okay?
A
Hope we've
Yoruba
established
man
that.
in truth and
but
in
I said the truth. The three of them were truths. So, that shows how honest
truth
I
and
am.
in
No, okay,
lie.
wait, no, wait. No, let's look at it like this. We asked him to do two truths and a lie, and he said three things to us and asked us to pick out the lie. You lied
A
to
lie.
us.
You
You
can't
Oh,
win
lied
with
to us.
women.
You
I swear.
lied to us. Anyway,
oh,
But it
anyway,
was nice watching you guys trying to figure it out. It was fun.
that's
that's
fine.
crazy.
Well
But yeah, I know we
done.
were talking about we're talking about like your claim to fame. For those who don't know, like Daniel had like a very good run on Twitter. I think I don't know if this was exactly 2020 or lockdown period or it was shortly before that. I think it
Thereabout.
was 20. Yeah, they're about right.
Yeah.
And back then all of us were in our phones 24/7. So I know that Daniel loves like Marvel, and all of that based on that.
Mhm.
And so Daniel would take, film content, like, upcoming films or even films that, already existed, and he would create these like really cool, amazing graphic posters or like almost like promotional material for it. And, he went viral a good number of times. And so that's like a very good background. And that's why I was like, oh, Daniel works in the creative space. But, just as a whole, we want to hear like about your journey, right? Like your career journey up until this point. How did you start in that space, and then how did you then transition into no code web design, and what motivated you to kind of like specialize in that? So like maybe you can just explain in like maybe 3-5 minutes thereabout.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I said? My story
Why?
is long. So let me just like I was one of those people who was like fortunate that my parents gave me access to like computers growing up. So I was one of those people that entered school and then found computers. Like I've always been that guy. So
Mm.
I'll say my first time I ever like tinkered with code or anything like that was in secondary school. But also in that period, I also had like creative stuff, like just trying out stuff. Like I had Adobe software on my computer, Photoshop, stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
back then, I thought I wanted to be an artist because as one wants to be for some strange reason. And then I started entering I entered computer science because I didn't fit in anywhere else. Like
Mm.
I couldn't try to study anything art related because that wouldn't have worked. Firstborn, like disappointment, all of those things. I feel like I could have done. I feel like I could have done it and gotten away with it, but I didn't have that risk mindset back then. So computer
Mm.
science was the only science related thing that I could do. So did computer science. I knew actually Shaggy, but that's another story for another day. And
Mm.
during that period, I was looking for how to like mix different stuff together. Then that's how I found product design because I hated coding back then, but I liked designing. But I also liked tech stuff too. So I was like, okay, this is the best way to mix everything together.
Intersection.
So
Mm.
yeah. But before then, I was already like graphic designing and stuff. Like I had NGOs I was working with, um, designing flyers and stuff. And there was just a bit of a crisis there, and that's how I just found product design. Then I got a job while still in school, and one thing led to another. Just before the lockdown started, I was let go. This is
Mm.
third. This is third. Let's go. Now I'm scared. I'm scared. I have a reputation of being let go,
A
but
liar.
this was
No.
actually a money issue. This was a money
Mm.
issue.
Mm.
The one that Oluwatoyin was also a money issue as well. company had lofty dreams, hired people, did not have good cash flow, fired people, normal stuff. So that was just before the lockdown, and that kickstarted my freelancing again. So fortunately for me, I knew some people, so jobs started coming my way and stuff like that. And lockdown gives you free time. And I also didn't have a full-time job. So I was just getting bored of product design because it's the same thing. Like, I know that you can design like different types of apps, but most companies want the same thing because it makes sense. If company A designed their screens like this and it worked, then we should do it like that. So I was just getting bored because it's the same thing over and over. So I had already, like I said earlier, I had already like had stints in Photoshop and all of these things, so I knew how to use it very well. So I was like, okay, let me just try out stuff. It was for fun, purely for fun. I wasn't, you know, that kind of thing where you're getting, I don't say depressed, like sound like a TikTok depressed, but it was just this low that I was always in, and I connected it to not being like mentally stimulated enough. So that was how the Photoshop stuff started, and that's how the whole Twitter thing and that blew up in that way. And then I
Twitter
thought,
okay.
yeah,
Carry on.
I thought of pivoting into that stuff, but then, and I actually got like some job offers, but then I looked at the money they wanted to pay me, and I was like, product design is not that bad. So I didn't end up going back to product design, but during that same period, I was also trying to figure out stuff. Like, I do a lot of not staying in one place, which I understand makes me look further like a Yoruba man, but I'm not going to argue that. But yeah, so
okay.
but yeah, it's just this thing where I needed something to stimulate me creatively, but also make me not feel stagnant. So that was around that period that I was doing those posters, but also not far from that period, I also found Webflow and no code. And I figured that, I could still be in design because websites and web design are not as strict as products. So that was the shift where I could still spend time doing this stuff, but I don't need to feel caged. So that was what happened. And then I just picked it up, and then from there, that's pretty much how I got here. Like a very abridged version of how I got here. So
I think that's very interesting, and I think that it also shows that it wasn't like a straight line, which is also very important because a lot of people tend to feel like it's one straight line from your career from one end to another, but it's a lot of figuring out. But like you said, you like challenges, so come and just tell us, like, what are some of the challenging projects you've worked on? Like, what's the most challenging, and like how did you navigate it? What's the difference? And thinking about it now, what's the difference in the way that you would have navigated it when you were like 2 years in, and now that you have more experience, right?
okay, so challenging. My career in
Maybe you can
general
just
has
think
just
of like one project or something, like one that really sticks out to you. Like, this particular project was a lot, and then just like maybe walk us through the thought process.
okay. Give me a few seconds. I want to pick the one with because they are they are different. I'll pick the one. I think I'll pick the one that I got immediately after school. So it was this thing where they had like a product that they wanted to build, and um all of us, or most of us, were just straight out of school. So or in school, but that meant a lot of the experience wasn't there. So there was a lot of mistakes and challenges, and the work not quite being up to what the CEO wanted and all that stuff. And what I'll do differently now is I won't have taken the job.
All right.
Okay, fair.
Because I won't have taken the job because now I'm just more of an usher when it comes to companies. But what I'm saying, what I mean is that there is
Yoruba
just
men
this.
saying things again, but
You
fair.
are representing your brothers well today. I love it.
Carry on, carry on.
Connected to your
So
heritage.
the thing is, I had this company loyalty thing then, and
Mm,
you could see the future of this company. Not like you could see the future if you thought about it well.
mm,
It wasn't going to go far. But all of these hopes and dreams, the Zuckerberg effect of, oh, we can build something and it will be huge and I'll be part of this thing. And I remember getting a job offer, but the job offer looked like lower than what I was in. And it was like, oh, why would I leave this for that? Because I have all of these benefits. And then it's like, at the end of the day, when it came for the company to survive, when it came time for them to survive, they had to let all of us go. So it was just like one of those multiple lessons I've learned in my career where your loyalty to a company shouldn't be like a life or death thing. It should be a give and take thing. So as long as it's mutually beneficial to both. So I'm not trying to say that people should not do their work well, should not take their work seriously and all of that. But I feel like maybe it's a Nigerian thing. We feel like we are indebted to the people we work for, and we just want to have that loyalty thing. But it's only beneficial to both parties up until a point. And if the tables were turned, they won't sacrifice for you, and you shouldn't expect them to. It's just business. So that's part of how I've been seeing my growth moving forward.
Fair
word,
enough.
word, word.
Fair enough, honestly. So I guess I mean this was a lesson from like the earlier stages of your career, and like of course that's something that when especially fresh out of uni and you do NYC, that NYC period is a period of so many ants in the air, right? Like so many people telling you what to do, and it's like all these HR people are talking about certification. You need certification to do this, to upskill, all of those things, right? So
Yeah.
basically, I want to get your take on that. Like, what is your take on certifications or like let's say courses for someone who is looking to strengthen their no code slash design skills? Do you think they are relevant for growth? Especially when you think about the context of like growing from junior level to like mid level, especially.
So I have an approach when it comes to these things. I know a lot of people argue, but for me, I just look at it as if you need something to get ahead, like if you need a certification, regardless of whether the certification actually adds anything to your skills. If you need to get a certification for positioning reasons, then get it. Like a lot of people say, oh, don't do this, don't take this boot camp, don't do this. They don't teach you that much and everything. And I just feel like, first of all, we're in Nigeria. We're at the bottom barrel of Africa. If you think about it, it's like if anything can marginally give you a step ahead, just do it. Even especially when the effort to reward ratio is not that very far apart.
See.
So for instance, now if taking an Udemy course that I can actually learn something from, and I'm just starting, and I just put Udemy course on my portfolio or something, it might actually be the difference between me getting a freelance job and someone else not getting a freelance job. You never know. So what I'll just say is that build your skills, but also think, how does this thing that I'm doing make me look? So if um it also depends, it's also very field dependent. So for instance, if you're an architect and the certification is supposed to, better go and take it or nobody will hire you. But if it's like in no code, you don't need certifications. But if you say, oh, I've taken this course, this is what I learned from this course, you can see how that positions you to do stuff. So just think of it as, I'm taking stuff to learn. I need to build my skills, but there's also a performative thing to when it comes to career. And I know a lot of people like to dunk on people on LinkedIn and all of those things, but those are people that you end up getting the jobs because they are visible. So there's a performative aspect to career, and you just have to buy into it. It can sound a bit sleazy, but I feel like you should, if
I
it's
Makes
worth it
agree.
sense.
in your head anyway.
Yeah, makes
I,
sense.
de- I definitely agree because for me, it's also a thing that is ringing constantly these days is that fortune favors the visible. You have to be in front of people to for them to actually remember you, right?
Yeah.
Bruh, but Just rewrote the entire parable. I mean, is it proverb? Is it what you favor the visible? Is the board?
Sorry, I
But
don't make
okay,
the
don't worry.
rules.
I'll allow, I'll allow, I'll
What
allow.
what's a marble?
Oh,
Oh,
Marvel.
please
The quote.
calm
Let's just tweet
down.
it. Just tweet it.
No,
Fortune
but it
But
favors
makes
the
sense.
visible. Yeah, it
yeah,
makes sense
See, you know
indeed.
what? I'm going to tweet
speaking
it,
of
but
that
I'm going
tweet,
to attribute it to you.
speaking of that Twitter, exactly. That's where I was coming to exactly. So from the outside, when I see the design Twitter community, I'm always very intrigued because at the same time it feels like there's a synergy between the design and the designers and the developers, right? But at the same time it's also like there's always a clash. And you seem to be sort of in the middle. So like what do you think causes the friction and how do you think that more people can also like bridge this? I'm asking because for junior developers or for junior designers, if they think that they can only fit in one area, it might also affect like the other side, right? If they are not able to work well with developers or they are not able to work well with designers, it makes it maybe harder to get jobs or stuff, right? So how do you think people can also sort of collaborate better? Yeah, I think that's the word I'm looking for.
Okay, so first of all,
Especially like with regards to, because I know design work can be so personal because it's creative work. I know that there's
yeah,
like a system to it, but it's also creative work. So it's like that feedback, giving feedback, receiving feedback can be such a big bone of
yeah,
contention.
it's
So yeah.
very very hard. So first of all, I'll say that people like Wahala, all these dev versus designer Wahala on Twitter. If you check the root of it, it's usually a very pointless argument. And
Mm,
I don't like to center myself in things like that because I know devs that can do any design you throw at them. And I know
mm,
designers that can design circles around most devs. So it's just I feel like a lot of people don't invest more in understanding context. So for instance, if
mm,
I need a project done in 2 weeks, that is not the time to be designing 3D animations and things like that. But on the dev side as well, your mates are building mad stuff like outside the country. And I need more people to think globally because again, as a Nigerian, you're at a disadvantage. So you cannot be, well, you start off as a disadvantage, most of us anyway. Some of you might be rich kids and that's normal, but most of us start off at a disadvantage. Yeah, trust me. So when I see these fights, I see two sides that are right and two sides that are wrong. So a lot of designers just design whatever they want to design. They don't calm down to think of constraints, how it's going to be implemented, whether it's even useful to the user, all of those things. And I
mm,
see devs that just don't want to work. Like they just want a template. Your design must fit into that template. And if it just deviates just a little bit, wahala. So I feel like both sides should be empathetic to each other, but there should also be context as well to different situations because some situations require you to go crazy. And if you don't go crazy, you sell yourself short. And then there are
mm,
some aspects that you self-reason out now. Like I've noticed this and I've worked in scenarios like that where I'm not even the designer, I'm the dev. And the designer doesn't move like they care about how the thing is going to be implemented. They just design and go. And I'm like, how do you expect your relationship with the dev to be good if you don't even bother to do quality control, do handovers, say, oh, I'm thinking of doing this feature. Can you do it? Is it possible? Of course, everything is possible, but can you do it within these constraints? Can you do these things? And then devs should be less like basketball sometimes. Just tell the designer that, look, on a normal day, I want to be able to build this thing because I want to be the best at I can be at my job. But yeah, this thing is due by Friday. I cannot do this in this period. So how can we compromise? and figure out the way forward. But like Twitter, now Twitter is designed for fights. Everybody must be
Right.
happy.
Yeah.
So I just see a lot of
Yeah.
people that don't communicate. It's very simple. Designers feel high and mighty, my way or the highway. Devs feel, see, don't disturb me. I'm already being stressed. Don't kill me. So people are not communicating.
That's a very real one, and I can see how like this would be like a major constraint, especially for like maybe a junior who hasn't like kind of like they're not very certain that they know their onions yet. So it's like putting their
Yeah,
foot down where is required, or even just developing the interpersonal skills that are relevant
yeah,
to like navigate these types of issues. Because sometimes you want to come correct, but the people you're working with, I don't even think they have an idea of what it means to
yeah,
come correct. And so you kind
Yeah.
of like have
yeah,
to figure that out and learn how to give, constructive, useful, implementable feedback that other people
yeah.
on the team can actually use. But anyway, we have more questions though. There are still plenty more questions where this came from. But we want to take like a
Wow.
slight detour into this segment. Now, this segment is essentially, see, Olatoyin and I were thinking and we were racking our brain and we're like, what will we name this? What will we name this segment? Please, I need your face to be straight. Try not to laugh,
Okay.
okay? But so this this
Okay.
segment is called the Ep My Life segment. I'm sorry. So
What does
for
that even mean?
don't worry, I'll get into
Sorry.
it. So, for all
Alive.
intents and purposes of today's episode, it is called the Daniel Ep My Life Part 1 segment, right?
Oh, oh wow.
So,
Okay.
essentially, we have a couple questions from different people that we feel you can actually help them. So it's pertaining to their career and all of that. So I'm going to read out a question from the first person, and then you can just help them figure out or navigate this, like provide an answer. So question one: Hi Daniel. So I'm a young freelance web developer, and one of my goals for 2024 was to come out of my shell, do more networking, and get more clients. However, I'm currently stuck on how to approach this. Do you have any advice on how I can tailor my portfolio and get new clients? Thanks, Z. So that's the name of our the person who needs you to up their life. So Daniel, up my
Help.
life.
This is not life advice. Quotes. Just so that we're clear. But yeah, I can relate to that. Part of the reasons why I quote unquote blew up on Twitter, because I haven't blown up on Twitter, but like in the design
Says the
space,
person
sort
with
of.
over 8K, maybe 9K now.
Bruh, there was a time
There are
that
people.
everything Daniel would tweet, it will go viral. I was just
Bro.
like, you don't say. Twitter blue, where are you?
It, that was an interesting time. It was like, but that's beside the topic. But yeah, some of it was calculated actually, because I
Mm,
remember I remember like 2019 thereabouts. Like I had I hit a ceiling in my design career, and when I say I hit a ceiling, that means like bottom. Like the ceiling is not a ceiling, but it was like I could not see beyond that because I didn't have community. I didn't have anybody. I was just on my own. And remember, I studied computer science, so most of my guys were devs. So I could see their own career trajectory, but I could not apply it to my career. So I started thinking, okay, how? Because that's how my brain works. Problem solution. So I started thinking, okay, how do you solve this? And it clicks that there has to be design communities that I can join. There just has to be. I don't know any of them, but it just has to be. And then I just searched on Twitter, and then one thing led to another, and I joined a couple. And it was that plus this kind of strategy of connect with people online. So I remember Twitter back then, I had like around 400 followers or so. And I just did this thing where I had two categories of people I would follow. Someone that I can learn from and someone that's likely to interact with me back. So the person I can learn from can be someone with like 200K followers. I don't even care if they reply me or not. Like just so I can learn from them. And then the second one is someone kind of more like horizontal networking. Someone that's more on my level. That if I follow this person, likely to follow me back. And if I reply them, they're likely to reply me back. So it's kind of like this small strategy that I did for a while. And I did that on LinkedIn as well. I was just, that people say like send cold messages with your LinkedIn DMs. I have a way of reducing my problems, and I know that if I make myself send cold mails to people, I won't send it. So I just figured, okay, let me look at this person's profile, send a connection request. If you answer me, fine. If you don't answer me, fine. And I just did that for a while. That's part of the things I was doing. So the idea was nobody knows me now, and that does not help me. So I need to put myself in a position where more people know me. So you can't game virality, but you can control your visibility. Like you can do that. So what
Okay.
Word, oh.
what what I'll
Word, word,
say
word,
to
word.
the person is that this person sounds like an introverted person, because if you're extroverted, you won't even be asking this question at all. You already have everybody you need. I'm just going to assume that you're introverted. The first thing is use social media. Like Twitter is a leveler. You're in the same level, you're in the same place with people who can buy your life, and the same people with people that are lower than you. Like it's a leveler. So use Twitter, use LinkedIn, and start networking upward and horizontally as well. So go on Twitter, search web developers Nigeria, search LinkedIn, search. And there's another strategy that I use. I think I told you about this before, where if I want to connect with someone, I don't send a DM straight, because I think of myself and how it would be if people just randomly send me DMs. Like I would respond, but what if I'm not in a chatting mode or whatever? And I just prefer that gauge the person. So you can have like a group of people you want to network with, be friends with, reply their tweets, comment on their LinkedIn posts, see if they even respond to you first. So when you've now done that for a while and you've gotten this rapport with this person and you now feel like, okay, all of us are on the same page, then you can now send your first DM. Should you require that? I feel like not every relationship requires DMs. You can just be your Twitter guy, your whatever. And that's one thing. And the second thing is post your work. I feel like this should be like an alarm on everybody's head. Post your work, because a lot of us feel like, I don't know what it is. I think it's an African thing. This false humility where it's like, I don't want to be seen. I just want to do my work and stuff like that, which is fair. But you want to be in a position where people know you, and you don't want to be that person who is always online and then they just see you as that person that talks. You have to be able to like show stuff. And most of the time, most of the work that I've gotten is because I make noise about the stuff I do. This is what I do. This is this project I did. That's a project I did. So yeah, you need to post your work. If your work is not something visual, maybe you don't have designs or whatever, you can talk about what you do. Talk about the steps you took to solve problems, what you are going through. You can take screen recordings, different things. Just put yourself in a position where someone sees you, they search, they immediately know what you do, can gauge the level you are at without you saying you are senior, whatever. Just you can gauge the level that you're at and just be visible. And if there are now networking events, you can show up for those ones, but you can't rely on networking events alone, because most people are there for their own like personal gain. So you might not be on their radar. But if I've already known you online and I meet you in a networking event, it's easier to form a bond that way, rather than all this hello, hi, and then someone that doesn't really want to talk to you is forced to smile, and then you think you've made a bond, and then you send them a DM and they don't respond. It's just a whole thing. So yeah, that's just the advice I can give.
That
Hope
makes
that helps.
sense. Oh my God. I mean, sorry, I just wanted to add that, when you said something about, trying to be visible, I know Lade Tawak, there was a time, because she's no longer so active on Twitter. I know
Yeah.
that she's definitely active in, her own like common spaces, right? But there was a time that, this was her message. She was like, be visible. And she did a workbook. And I know I've shared that workbook with so many people. I don't even think that I will see whether it's still available to download, like, or to purchase on Seller. But if it's not, I know that I've gotten many people to use that workbook because it was so actionable that, like, it was different. Basically, some of the points that you said, like, break down what you want to be known for and be intentional about leaving that paper trail, so that when people follow, it's almost like your footprints in sand. So when people follow it, they
Yeah.
land on the image you actually want them to have of you over time. So yeah, that makes sense.
Also be a human being. Don't,
Mm.
because I've
Right.
noticed a lot of these people you see on Twitter. I sold my business for $5 million. Here's how, thread.
Mm.
And then you can just sense the chat GPT-ish thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
So just, I know it's a very generic advice, but just just be you. Like just post how you would post, like you are talking to people. Don't
mm,
regurgitate something you think you're supposed to sound like, because people can smell fake
Yeah,
people.
from far
So,
away.
and also don't be afraid to rebrand. Like if you need to switch careers, don't be afraid to start talking about what you want to get into as well. Because some people feel
Mm-hmm.
like they feel stuck to, oh, everybody knows me as this. And if I start changing from that, then that might affect me in some way. I feel like people remember you for the last thing that you did. So just
Mm.
yeah.
focus on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Makes
think
sense.
that makes a lot of sense because the new people that would even meet you in like 2 years will only know what you are showing them right now. So if you were a
Yeah,
designer
exactly.
before, they'll probably have forgotten. They don't even know that part of you, right? So you can
Yeah.
always move forward and make new changes.
Mm-hmm,
Giving
mm-hmm,
master class. So all right, all right. So before we go back to the questions, right? We
mm-hmm.
have rapid fire questions for you, this or that, right? You are not supposed to think too much about
Give
it.
me,
Just
give me,
answer.
give me, give me warning. Will
It
is
will,
this
it will
possibly going
definitely.
to get me dragged? Is this
Is
going to
this
get me
going to get
dragged?
you?
That this
No,
question
no,
is
I
no,
mean,
dragged.
so
don't
if
worry.
for example there's
Okay.
Amalaba so Semo and you pick Semo, then you get dragged and there's nothing we can do about it.
Oh, no,
So
that's fair. That's fair. Semo is bottom drawer. Don't worry. Let's move.
exactly.
Yeah.
Don't
But yeah.
worry. Don't worry. You got this. Okay. So
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go. Video calls or emails?
Emails.
No, you have to you have to do it immediately. You're thinking about it.
Who's
Oh,
who's
okay.
second?
Emails. Emails. Okay. Emails.
Okay. Love or money?
Love.
Oh, okay. Night sprint or morning sprint?
Morning friends.
Okay. Playlist or podcast?
Podcast.
Figma or Adobe?
Figma.
Movies or series?
Movies.
Good.
Freelance or 9 to 5?
Freelance.
Okay. Cook or order food?
Other food.
Japa or stay in Nigeria?
Leave. Leave. If you can enter the next lorry carrying part of the country, just be going. Just go.
I'm
Go.
screaming. You sound passionate about that. Okay. Remote or hybrid?
Remote.
HR looking at you with side eye. Last one, Spotify or YouTube music?
Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My people, my
Okay.
people, my people. I
I
love it.
mean,
Oh, sorry, Jara.
you have
Jara.
some questionable answers somewhere, but this is fine. It's all right.
Okay, so Fufu or Eba?
Eba. See, fufu. I feel like fufu should be used as glue, like gum that used to.
Hello,
Actually, it
excuse
should
me,
not be eaten. It should not be
excuse me,
eaten. It doesn't taste well.
excuse
It
me,
doesn't smell nice. It doesn't any.
excuse
It doesn't
me.
smell good at all. Atrocious.
Doesn't smell good. How do
It
you
doesn't
feel?
smell good. Fair.
There is a
Agree.
sorry, Daniel. There is an imposter among us.
And what do you mean by that? What do you mean? No, I'll choose Emma definitely. But he's not as bad as you guys are making out the same.
Mm,
So
if you
calm
insist.
down.
If you
Okay,
Calm
provide
if
it,
you
down.
insist, but I'll free you. You have enough other good points that I can use to
Yes,
free you for this one for your questionable
yep.
tasting food. But okay,
But yeah, so like in light of choosing one versus the other, and blah blah blah, right? We've talked about how like it's your creative leanings that kind of led you into like this career, right? So when we talk
hmm
about like no code design, there's all this like all generally like when we talk about product design generally, right? There's a conversation of what should be like what should take center stage, functionality versus creativity, right? And for you, this was also like a part of your internal turmoil that kind of led you into this part where it's like, I want to do creative work and I want to do it within like tech and building and all of those things. So it's like, how have you managed to figure out what the balancing act for creativity and functionality in no code design? Like, how have you managed to figure that out?
Okay, first of all, I haven't figured it out. But
Ew.
the extent to which that I have is always think of constraints. Like any designer that has spent time being a designer will think of design in constraints, because you can pretty much keep designing forever. It doesn't end. But the question is deadline. When does this thing need to go out? Who is this for? How much is the budget? All of those things. So the problem is we like to jump the gun and be like, oh, I want this project to be on my portfolio, my most creative project yet. And they might really just need a simple landing page that you've seen like 10 times. But so long as it converts, that's the main thing.
Do you want to start, advance, or switch to a career in tech?
You can learn the skills you need to become successful when you apply into the Old School Africa program.
Old School Africa has a variety of code and no-code programs like front-end engineering, back-end engineering, data science, data analysis, cybersecurity, product design, product marketing, and so many other programs.
That was a nice list. Classes are fully virtual, so you can learn anywhere. Tuition is affordable. There's an incredible community of learners ready to welcome and support you. And you can also earn a diploma at the end of the 12 months program.
So if this sounds interesting to you, you can get more information about available programs and how to apply at www.oldschoolafrica.com.
So when you pick creativity versus functionality, I think people also don't understand that even creativity, there's function to it. So sometimes you need to stand out. That's a function. And sometimes the websites that convert are the ones that are like, oh, I haven't seen this before. Let me use that. And then there are sometimes that there are some markets that you just don't want to be too creative. You want the design to not be horrible, obviously. But if you are trying to market to our parents' generation now, you don't need like designs that's floating everywhere. People that are too scared that if they press anything to delete the entire thing, you can't be doing too much like that. So I think we should see everything in the same level of how does this apply to the end goal of this project? And that's where like removing your ego, because there are times that you would want this thing to fly and then they come back with feedback and you're too attached to your idea. But at the end of the day, you are here to solve a problem. Unless it's your portfolio, your personal project or whatever. But like if you're being paid to do something, there's an end goal. And everything you do has to service that end goal, even your creativity. End quote.
I'm enjoying this conversation. My goodness.
You know, right? It's giving masterclass for real.
Bruh. Daniel, where should we sign up? Oh, me too, I want to start no code design. How about that?
Okay, now that you mentioned that, I feel like this is literally playing out in real time. So the way you are saying it now, it looks like no code is just like, we can do it now, we can run it. But I feel like that's also a misconception, right? So like, what are some of those misconceptions that, junior designers are probably having about no code, or people who are just trying to come in? But as a mid-level senior person, you're like, I don't think it's going that way, bruv. Right? So what are some of
I've
those
seen?
and how
So
can
the
you
biggest
advise?
okay, yeah. So the biggest misconception is that no code replaces developers, because there seems to be this beef that we must put developers out of their jobs. And I find it so strange because developers are building the tools that you're using. So developers will always have work. So why are you fighting them? So a lot of people look at, I don't want to pay developer money, so this tool that just came out will replace developers. And we've been down this road multiple times. Dreamweaver did not replace developers. WordPress did not replace developers. Webflow, Bubble, all of these things are not going to replace developers. They are supposed to be a tool that gives you that's not a developer the tools to be able to do things that developers can do. And also developers gives them more time to do actual technical stuff
Other things,
than
yeah.
focusing on basic stuff that you can just give someone in your marketing team to do, for instance. Because I can imagine that a front-end engineer in a fintech company does not enter the fintech company to build fintech solutions or to build the front-facing aspect and solve those problems of fintech solutions. I don't imagine that someone like that would be interested in building marketing sites for promotion or whatever, unless that's why you join. And I can imagine that because working with marketing people, there's always something to build, always something to push.
Yeah.
There's always this
Tread
campaign
carefully,
and all of.
there are two marketing jobs here. Just quick. I
No,
think
don't.
both are free, but
At this point,
work small. Okay. That's not a threat, though. It's
So
not a threat.
I'm on your side. I'm on your side. I'm on your side. I'm
That's
saying
what
that
I'm saying.
people.
I'm helping you buttress your point. Yes.
I'm on your side. I'm
I just
saying
want to say that
that you.
between you and I, Oluwatoyin, there is now another imposter among us.
So I. So I've
Oh,
worked.
yeah.
I've worked. I've worked with like marketing teams and designers and stuff, and I've seen what no code does for them. It's basically the designers come up with color guides, templates, things that you should work within. Sometimes they might even come up with mock-ups that you can just plug and play. And a marketing person that's looking into no code should think of it as this is something I can do without disturbing the dev. Because you guys would know that working with devs that are thinking of something else, trying to get them to build something that they think is mundane, but you know is important can be a struggle.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, so seeing no code as a developer replacement tool is not the way to see it. It's seeing it as I want to build something without needing all the technical skills to be able to build them. And I've also seen cases where developers themselves use no code tools to fast track their work. So that's like a don't see this as replacing, see it as giving power to people, essentially. So
That makes
that's what
sense.
makes
And
sense.
it's so interesting. Like I really love the flow of this conversation because you just talked about how this is like one of the major misconceptions. And it's like my next question literally is about the whole replacement idea that we have when it comes to tech and generative AI, right? So like from where you stand right now, what do you think the future of no code development is, or like and like the impact of that on the web design industry when you think about like generative AI and just the scale at which it is growing, right? The scale at which it is,
Yeah.
progressing, so to speak.
So I see tools as something that helps people. So for instance, when ChatGPT came out, it was this thing that everyone was talking about, replace this, replace that, replace this, replace that. That's always the problem. But when I started using ChatGPT, it actually helped me personally. There's some stuff that would have taken me hours to figure out that I just asked ChatGPT, how would you do this? And maybe like 9 times out of 10, what it tells me is rubbish. But like the 10th time that I get something, it's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of this. So anything that regards the future, technology, you can't stop it from happening. You can't fight generative AI, you can't fight any of those things. There are lots of stuff that might be morally wrong, like stealing art and stuff like that. But the thing is, technology gives power to both good actors and bad actors. So you should look at the tool itself and ask yourself, okay, how does this help? So for instance, Framer is one of the no-code developer tools. They have this AI feature where it helps you fast track building your site faster. That's one thing that would help. I see the future of a lot of people that can't afford like good devs, good designers would be able to go straight to markets without like having to hire people and stuff like that. They can just do it themselves. And then when they now find out that, oh, I need a more niche solution, they can now go and call like the experts to do stuff for them. So the stuff that Squarespace has been doing for years, Wix, all those guys, I see that being more large scale. I think people say stuff like democratizing or whatever the word. Yeah. So I think that's essentially it. It's like you are giving power to people who otherwise not have had that power. So I see the future of no code anything as giving people the ability to do technical stuff that they won't have been able to do otherwise with lower costs and faster output. So be it a company needs a website, Squarespace Wix has done that. So I'm sure that there'll be more stuff that people are already doing, like generative AI for copywriting, images, stuff like that. At least as a start of MVP type of thing. So now you wouldn't need to hire anybody and break the bank just to start stuff. So I can imagine that the lower the cost to start things, the more innovation will happen. So that's the way I see it. Yeah.
And I think I agree with that because like so you had said something about how like tech like is I've forgotten exactly how you framed it, but tech enables people to do both like enables both good actors and bad actors. But
Yeah.
also something I think about is that technological advancements makes room for more technological advancements or like
Yeah.
it creates more like so as it's filling up gaps, it's creating more gaps that you
Yeah.
didn't know
Yeah.
would exist, and then there are more
Exactly.
people that can be pushed into that space and fill up that space till it's
Yeah.
saturated, and then like there's always going to be more room for that. And I think Oluwatoyin can attest to the fact that I so these days I'm very quick to use like because even just in our whole ideation, thinking about like strategizing this thing, whenever we have questions, I realize we're spending too much time thinking about it. I'm always like, open ChatGPT,
And you
open Google, like open wide. Like I don't even have time for this. Like I would know, like I have enough sense, human sense, to know when it's bullshit or when it's not. But like at
Yeah.
least like for a base level for you to even almost like a launch pad to start thinking of it
Mm.
from this side or this angle. Like I'm also happy to use these things. So yeah.
Even in between work, like there are some projects that my development time would be cut in half because no code is not always no code. There's also some coding. It's depending on what you want to do, depending on the complexity. So there are times that there are sometimes they actually have to like touch code, and sometimes it's very frustrating. Like you enter a project and you didn't think the scope of the project require any code at all, and then you look at it and like, okay, this don't require code. And then there are times that so throw the code into ChatGPT. ChatGPT says, "Oh, this is what I think the problem with your code is," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. Fix it." So I imagine that developers will be much faster with testing and debugging their codes. People who are learning engineering and coding. Like imagine in my Unilag days, if I had ChatGPT, for instance, like I probably would have done better because lecturer is not explaining it properly. I need someone to break it down in simpler terms. Or
Yeah.
you're trying to do a project that maybe is bigger than your current skill set, rather than asking too many questions or trying to reach out to people who might not have your time. You can use that to jumpstart so that by the time you're going to meet with the more experienced people, it's like, okay, this is what I figured out the problem is. Then they can now help you, as opposed to just being thrown into the deep end. It's like having infinite knowledge that can lie most of the time, but it's still knowledge that you won't have access to otherwise. So that's just the way I see it.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely a starting point as opposed to starting from ground zero. But
Yeah.
all this is important. I love, generative AI doing the good work and all of that. But you see, money. We need to talk about
Time
the
is time
money.
time is money now. Like even with the generative AI stuff, like I imagine that it's like saved me hours. Something that ChatGPT can give me in like 2 seconds that
Fair,
saved me
fair.
hours. So I can do more with less time, which equals to more money.
More money, fair. But that's what I was going to talk about. It's like in the money aspect, right? Coming from like mid-level and all of that. How do you go about negotiating salaries and benefits? Because I'm sure that you most likely did not have all of that knowledge when you were just starting out. But now that you are a bit higher up, how do you go about that? And also, what do you think like junior designers should know or junior developers should know about negotiating benefits and salaries?
Okay, so I've freelanced more than I've worked
Okay.
full time. So just putting that caveat out there. So I don't have a large amount of experience with negotiating salaries,
Well,
but
also in time of pricing, sorry to cut you off,
oh,
but like also in
okay,
terms of
pricing.
pricing too. Yeah,
Okay.
that also works.
So first of all, I think one of the hard lessons I had to learn is that nobody's going to tell you what to charge. You can check the entire internet, you can check everything. Nobody is going to outright tell you what to charge. You are the one that will decide for yourself based on data that you've seen. So you would have to do your own research and have two factors. The first factor is, what is a fair rate that if I get paid this, I would not mind doing this, the work for this amount. And then there's market rate, which is, this is what people are paying for this stuff. And let's say a job is 100K that you can feel good for. And the market rate, your mates are charging 500K, for instance. You are selling yourself short. So you should just do research, which means you should be talking to people in your field, for instance. You shouldn't be going it alone. And I know that price is a difficult thing to talk about, like how much I earn and all of that. But I feel like people should have their own smaller communities. So it's not like I'm tweeting that, oh, my salary is this. But smaller communities as per your guys, that is what I got this job offer and all of these things. And you should also think of where the company is, for instance. So a lot of people talk about, I can never go below this amount, which is fair. But the cost should also depend on who you're doing the work for. So if I choose to do work for a Nigerian company, I can't charge most Nigerian companies US rates. It just doesn't make sense business wise.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So a controversial take that I would have that has worked for me is be flexible with your pricing, especially if you're a freelancer. So you can have your base rate for whatever you're doing. You're not going to go below that, except certain things are in place. So one thing I always say is that whatever work you're doing, feel like you're doing it on your terms. So if you're taking a cut for a job, be the one that decided that I'm taking this work
Yeah.
because I need it for more experience. Try as much as possible to not be in positions where you feel like people are doing you a favor. So, of course, take internships. I have no problem with doing work for free, but it has to be you that looked at your future and you were like, okay, I need to do this work for this amount so that I can get more work for future amounts. So, wherever you are, do research. Same thing goes for salary bands. I imagine that a tech company can be paying 100K, but if a business would pay you 50K if you tell them you want to collect 50K. They won't. Most of them will not be like, oh, but our market rate is 100K. Like they will look for how to save money, and you might just be walking to meet them on a platter like, oh, pay me peanuts. So just always think of two. Like I said, always think of two things: the fair rate, what you think that you can collect, that you would feel satisfied working on the job, and find some form of balance between that and the market with what people are actually paying. Because I can say that one now, people will be like, oh, okay, 500K per month is what I will feel comfortable in, but the market rate for your level is 100K. So you're not going to be able to get paid 500K salary unless maybe you work for a foreign company. So at the end of the day, there's no proper template for price, and people can just tell you how they price or how they negotiate. So you're the one that will decide how much you feel you should be collecting based on factors that you have gotten in your research, so that you don't sell yourself short, but also so that you don't miss on opportunities by just being unreasonable. So that balance.
So
Okay.
it's essentially based on experience and your rating of yourself also.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Long and short. Okay, so I think that's most of our questions, but we do have one more because I know I mentioned earlier that the Ep My Life segment was part one. So this part two. This is part two. And to anybody who's actually listening, or even you, Daniel, if you have a suggestion for what we should make this segment, Give us
We better.
suggestion. Otherwise, Mukuna no drag us.
This is
I'm not
Anyway,
going to
my
lie.
life. That's what
I'm not
we're
going
going
to
to
lie.
be.
F my life is good branding. I can't even lie. Because it got
stop.
it got my attention. But
Okay,
it might have made me want to
now
run
that you're
away as well.
saying
Because F my
it.
life. I'm
As
running away
Okay.
from billing as fast as I can.
No, don't worry. Nobody's beating anybody, but I can be Risha, but don't worry about that.
we'll see you later. Later.
So this is Daniel
Okay.
F My Life Part 2. Da da da. So this question comes from Topes, and Topes is saying, "Hi Daniel, I currently work with an agency, and I also have my side gigs going on because Nigeria is choking. But I noticed that my health and friendships have been suffering lately. One of my goals for this year is to improve my work-life balance. How can I achieve this?" And Daniel, we all know that you have friends. Like community is a big deal for you. So I think you're the perfect person to actually answer this.
Okay, so I'm going to start off saying that I'm privileged. So
Mm-hmm.
take every advice I give based on that. I'm privileged to have great friends. I'm privileged to have understanding friends. I'm privileged to have friends that we don't have to talk every day and we're cool. So just prefacing that. But I think that's just being an adult. You have phases where your relationships will struggle. I don't want to say suffer, but work happens, life happens. You will have those phases. I think rather than looking for work-life balance, I think you should think of your life in seasons and optimize for that. So there can be a period in your life where work is just going to be killing you and there's not that much you can do about it. You can say, "Oh, I'm going to be intentional about my friends and everything," but your hands are literally tied. So I think you should prioritize the highs that you have, like when you have a lot of free time, go all out, enjoy those periods. And the low phases, be very big on communicating and be like, I would not be available as much because of XYZ reasons. And I have to do this. And I feel like any friend that's worth being friends with would understand that we are all adults and adulting is hard on everybody. The only thing that I'll say as a caveat is that relationships require effort. They just do. And sometimes it's the effort to be harder than other times. So long as you're putting a baseline effort, like you are actually trying, you can only do your best.
As much as you
Like
can, yeah.
you can only do as much as you can. So I think balance is overrated. I think it's just have like maybe quarters or whatever time that you want to allocate for reviews. So in a year, rather than saying, I want to be intentional about my friends this year, say, I want to be intentional about my friends this quarter. So when the quarter ends, you can now review and be like, okay, this happens, this happens. And then when you think of life in phases and stages, you are more likely to solve for that stage. So for instance, now if I'm trying to be more intentional with my friends today, the same amount of effort it would take to do that might be different tomorrow. So first of all, don't be harsh on yourself. Like life is hard. Like for instance, this week I entered this meeting. I'm tired because work, 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 work. It just happens. There are phases that are like that. I think people should prioritize being good friends, but also prioritize having friends that are understanding. Because I can't imagine having a hard work period and then a friend is angry that I did not text them. Like the phone goes both ways. So just just like be sure that whoever you're putting in that effort for is also going to put the same effort for you. And if you have those type of friends in your life, I don't think you should be bothered so much about work swallowing you because if you could, you would. That's just how I see it. So prioritize thinking in phases. Work is plenty, so how can I show up for my friends in this phase? Then review over and over and over. But the biggest thing is to just communicate.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. Although I mean, this person did mention that there was also health concerns. So I
Oh, health
guess
concerns. Yeah, I forgot that.
uh,
So that even makes your work easier for you. Like not to sound insensitive, but I feel like when you have like health concerns, that's the time to know that the friends that actually have your back. Because if I feel guilty for having health concerns, like I physically can't show up enough. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like you should be more lenient with yourself because you can only physically do what you can physically do. And if maybe you want to hang out more with your friends as opposed to going out, you can do more video calls, you can play online games. Like your friendship is your friendship. You are the only one that you and your friends are the only ones that can discuss on what is the best way to handle that. So you know your life, you know your constraints, you know your weaknesses. Your friends know theirs. So I feel like you should just communicate. And so long as everybody is trying, I feel like you find a common ground. So
I
I
think
genuinely feel
I
like if anybody's making you feel bad for not being a good friend because you have health concerns, I feel like you should start asking questions. But that's just that's
yeah,
just but that's just
I definitely agree. And I think that one of the issues is that people think there's a way to follow, especially for friendships and relationships, like
yeah.
there's a formula. But sometimes just being also creative, like the same way you are creative about finding problems, solving problems in the office and the issues that come up, find creative ways to also do with your friendship or iterate your own life. So your health is acting up. Find creative ways to make sure that now I'm taking care of my health by but I'm also still showing up, when I need to. So yeah, it's a lot of iterating and all of that. But Daniel has helped people's life. So that to you. So we are done. I think we're done with all our questions. It's just to wrap things up. At this point, I wanted to ask if you have anything else to say. So we might have missed anything. Just like any final words for designers and developers in the community. What do you want them to know?
I think I seen it.
Okay, so I
Yes,
think I will take that again.
yes, we can see.
Can you hear me now?
Check. My computer is showing I'm not connected to the internet, but for some reason I'm still on this call, so I'm just going to roll with it. I'm going to roll with it. What was the thing? What was the question that you asked?
I think it's a bit slow because I can see that your face is blurry, your camera is blurry, so maybe it's just slow. Okay,
It's
you're
likely
coming
that
into
it's
focus.
I can hear him. I can see him well too.
Really? It's not
Yeah.
lagging.
I mean, it's workable. I can see him here. He just waved. He just put his hand on his chin now, right?
That's-
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
just did this sign exactly. So
It's fine, Daniel. It's okay. We can see you.
now you have to troubleshoot these things. Okay, so yeah, what was the
um,
question?
okay, so it's just final words, right? What final words do you have for anybody who is trying to upscale from junior level to mid level? Any final words? Anything you think they should do or no?
Okay, so I'm not very big on junior, mid-level, senior. Like I understand that it's useful for growth in your company and you should not you should take that seriously. But I feel like your problem would start when you're too focused on the label itself. Like
Mm,
I want to be a mid-level designer, I want to be a senior designer. The fact of the matter is that a lot of senior designers are not actually senior. The role they gave them in their company was senior. So they became senior. And that's not a drag. Like a lot of us have been there. Like you are the most senior in your team, therefore you are
mm,
senior. And you can carry that same person to another company and they'll be the most junior in their team. So it really depends on you, like your trajectory. So if you want to be in this company for a long time, ask yourself what the mid-level designers in that company are doing, and then
mm.
find a way to grow into that. But for your own career in general, I think you should not limit yourself to mid-level, senior, whatever, because a lot of times the role is what the role needs is what you do. So you might be a
no.
junior designer, but you are running a freelance gig and you're the most senior designer there. So you have to take responsibility. Like you just have to. So don't be bothered too much about in my opinion, don't be bothered too much about mid-level senior, except you're thinking of it as growth in a company. But when you're thinking about it like in your career, think what is the best possible thing I can do to reach the next level. So for product designers now, it might be taking more ownership of work that they do, being more, people don't have to tell you what to do, take initiative, things like that. And you're the only one that can, it's only people in your field or people in where you are that can determine that. So what I mean by that is I can't tell you what to prioritize in your growth where you are at right now because I don't know you, I don't know where you are, I don't know what you are working, I don't know your responsibilities. But think what is the best, highest possible level I can get to skill-wise, responsibility-wise, and optimize for that for yourself. Then if you're thinking growth within companies, look at what they are doing for that position, that role that you want to get to mid-level. If you know mid-level designers, ask them what are they doing. If you know mid-level senior devs, ask them what they are doing. And start doing things that can occupy that role so that by the time you want to get a promotion or move forward, it's kind of like playing the game. You're playing a game with the company, like you're following the steps you're supposed to follow. But if you get too carried away with the role, like I'm a senior designer, or whatever, a senior designer in an African startup might not be a senior designer in Silicon Valley, for instance. I'm just like just to explain. So I'm not saying that African startups are not good. I'm saying that if you limit yourself to the role where you are at, you might not end up being very good on a global scale. So if you want to use mid-level senior, fine. Think what is the most senior designer capable of doing, then focus on moving there. Then on your way there, you can now start looking at, okay, I want to get to this mid-level role in my company. What are the mid-level people doing? Then you can do that. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I think we've come to the end of today's, session, today's episode, and it really was like I learned a lot because these are like generally like applicable in so many ways. Really something that really stuck with me, I think, was the think about your life in seasons because yeah, that just makes sense. I know I often say this, but like I don't know that I've ever really thought about it in the context of career and just like a busy season and then a less busy season. Or maybe I have, but just haven't really thought about it like as for like a protracted period. I just always think about it like project based. You have a short project and that could swallow you up, but after that, you move on. But yeah, that was really great. So thank you so much, Daniel. It was great talking to you. And
It
yeah,
was
we're
great
about to
talking
sign
to you
out.
guys too.
Okay. Oluwatoyin, what are our handles? Tell them where they should follow us so that we can wrap this
Oh
up.
yeah. So feel free to follow us on all social media platforms because we're definitely going to be rolling out more episodes with people in the industry that you want to listen to. So you can follow us on in context _ podcast, in context _ podcast. You can find it anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, right? I'm counting on the TikTok people to really show because as a TikTok girly. But yeah, follow us and also join our mailing list because we would also be dropping a couple of inside gist, just to make some people feel less among than the others. Yeah, as far as yeah, so we'll also be dropping important information on like just tips generally to help people scale their career and stuff like that. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you on that side. Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
All right. So I remain Joe, and that lady over there is Oluwatoyin. And with that, we're signing out. We should do the love thing.
Oh my god. Daniel, so what are you not doing? Oh my god.
I'm doing the bottom.
Please,
All right. So,
bye
Daniel,
everyone.
Bye.